I returned with another video. This one is about SuperHorrorBro and how I opened my own makeshift investigation as to what game SuperHorrorBro played and just up and ditched. Of course, this is a meaningless and utterly useless waste of my time, but I had nothing else on the brain until I saw what he did with Silent Hill F. I was incredibly inspired to waste my time on investigating this. So sit back, relax, and let's see what SuperHorrorBro failed to deliver. Of course, we still love him, and Horror Bro, if you ever see this in the future, just know that you could never cringe as hard about this video as I'm about to cringe making it. Number 1. No, I'm not a human. This game has a fairly simple mechanic. It's the kind of spot the anomaly mechanic, but instead of it being a place, it's more so a spot the doppelganger than anything else. The game doesn't seem to have that much of a storyline other than the fact that the world seems to be ending because of the sun. People are dying and these strangers that come to your home need shelter from death. Or the sun in general, actually. In other words, you're a sitting duck waiting for your own life to end. Now, a little random sort of mention. Rock Music made a song called No, I'm Not a Human, and just random. Okay, but enough about music, okay? Shut up about music. SuperHorrorBro played the demo. I think it was the demo, the full game looks to be around 3 hours long. I have seen some playthroughs run up to 5 hours because they want to catch all the entities. Kudos to them and their persistence, because apparently SuperHorrorBro doesn't even have the persistence to finish the game in general. Of course, I'm not judging him. Let's see, what's the game really about? It's about spotting anomalies, assassinating the doppelgangers, all the while the sun is also attempting to assassinate you. Or the people outside who don't have shelter, and that's why they're coming to you for shelter. This game seems really random, as most horror games tend to be. It's about getting to know these strangers, either inviting them inside or leaving them out to die. It's about decision-making, sacrificing in order to ensure that the residents inside remain safe. So why wouldn't SuperHorrorBro, a channel that specializes in these kinds of environments, not want to pursue an opportunity to document it? The opportunity, right? Okay, I have no idea, but the advertisements and the thumbnails look really cool, but I couldn't dare betray SuperHorrorBro like that because I am loyal, and because he's probably one of the few gamers that don't have 100,000 cuss words in between each sentence. It's really not worth watching someone else screaming into a microphone if he doesn't have an English accent, and especially not worth it if it's not Mike. So it sucks that this game will probably never get played by him since he's taking a break. Or, maybe retiring. He says he's taking a break, but that's exactly what the old man said before he told the supervisor he'll be retiring early. That's also exactly what the boyfriend said to his girlfriend several weeks before they broke up. So now boyfriend doesn't have a girlfriend, and old man doesn't have a job, and now Super Horror doesn't even have bro anymore. It's tragic, I know. Okay, moving on. Number 2, Enna, Dream Barbecue, random title. I don't really care much for it, but I can't say it wouldn't have been nice to see something like this play out. Especially with SuperHorrorBro's reactions to everything. He acts like he's so normal in comparison to this game, when he's the same guy that created a game where you use eyeballs as currency. He's not exactly on the normal side of things either, As for the game, Enna Dream Barbecue seems to be more of an hourglass into the brain of the creator. Hourglass? Nah, shoot, I can't remember what you call it. Magnifying glass. Yes, magnifying glass. Okay. I can imagine making a game like this must have taken a lot of psychological elasticity, since everything is so bizarre to the point where it has its own structure, despite how bizarre it may seem to the individual witnessing it. It takes real patience to keep up with your own head when your creation is constantly attempting to run itself off a cliff. Enna makes close to no sense and has no story to follow alongside. There's nothing horror related to her, and the atmosphere is like climbing a Rubik's Cube. One day you'll reach the end, but will you reach it before the cube turns again? It's kind of painful to watch SuperHorrorBro scattering around looking for something to achieve, so it's not on my list of favorites, but I love the game in general. It's extreme and out of place. Even the title doesn't make any sense. I have no idea how a barbecue relates to trying to find your boss. Also, one thing that makes me most uncomfortable about the game is the fact that Enna is 2 different personalities, and kind of 2 different genders as well. One with a more masculine voice that has a more positive and lenient attitude, and a female characteristic that has a more aggressive and dominant approach. It makes me uncomfortable because it makes me think of gender dysphoria, which in often cases describes how you can get all the surgeries you want. You will never be the opposite sex. In other words, the psyche remains the same. The male remains lenient and complacent as the female remains psychologically advanced. Women who transition into masculinity tend to have more of an aggressive and territorial approach than when men transition into women. Men tend to lean into femininity like it's a weakness, as if femininity is about pastel colors and dresses, press-on nails, and makeup. In other words, the reason it makes me so uncomfortable is because there's something to unpack there. So, no, I'm not all that keen on seeing this one get played, but I also really adore the graphics and the world placement. I love the psyche of an individual that knows how to control his system. Everything has its place in Enna Dream Barbecue except Enna, who is the protagonist searching for the boss. Number 3, Silent Hill F. F-U. Unlike the others, I don't understand this one. Unless he streamed this, which I wouldn't know because I took a sick week when he released this one, and I wouldn't know if he said he was going to stream it or not. Point is, he didn't do his story explained either, so I don't think he finished it. Silent Hill F is basically another case of Resident Evil Requiem, except this one actually did a good job of properly introducing the character, and not just depending on its fandom to make rankings. The only thing that bothers me about this playthrough is the way she interacts with her friends. I mean, one of the female characters is a real bitch. The other one is more normal. The male character in this friend group acts kind of gay. He doesn't react to females the same way other boys do. I don't mean that he's supposed to fall head over heels every time he interacts with a female, or treat her like a glass. It's just, his approach when it comes to the main character is odd. I can't explain this because when I was in middle school, I was friends with a lot of boys. The way they treated me and the other girls was like a boy in a way. They would play tag with me, tackle me, play ball, they would do physical things, you know? I know a lot of people would say that was middle school, that's not the same. In a way it is, because as you get older, they tend to pull away because once puberty hits, things get different. This isn't just me, but the only kind of male I can picture being that compassionate and considerate of the main character's struggles is if he's in tune with those struggles in a feminine way. It's not to say he is gay, but he is different, which is very interesting since it makes him a really good comparison for a female. Like a male fashion designer, he doesn't have to be gay in order to understand color coordination in certain materials. He just has to be in tune with a feminine identity, which is what it is. That's what femininity is. In often cases, it's got to do with intelligence, emotional understanding, and fragility, which is something men don't tend to execute. It doesn't make it a weakness, it just makes it a category. The same way we associate masculinity with physical violence, because males are more likely to lash out physically, whereas females lash out emotionally. We don't associate femininity with any kind of violence, we associate women's actions with violence, but not the category of femininity itself. So Silent Hill F is a bummer, and I feel like SuperHorrorBro's headspace might have not been right at the time, because I think anybody who's a fan of SuperHorrorBro wouldn't be able to understand why he wouldn't cover it, so I'll just leave it at that. Number 4, Crow Country. Bear in mind that this was around the same time Indigo Park came out, and he had released a trailer for his new game, so he might have been distracted. And Crow Country is sort of a back burner since a lot of gamers were covering it at the time. But that doesn't justify the fact that he promised a story explained and then proceeded to never bother with the game ever again. The game looks like if you combined My Friendly Neighborhood and Resident Evil in one. It has a lot of mechanics that Resident Evil has as well as My Friendly Neighborhood, with the fact that you have to assassinate or generally just shoot your enemies, and collect ammo in boxes and drawers. Ammunition. Okay, I do have to admit that My Friendly Neighborhood isn't actually as much of a horror game as one would think, since it's just about these puppets that went crazy because they couldn't cope with the idea of violence. It's kind of sweet, and I understand why SuperHorrorBro likes the game so much, because it revolves around collecting ammunition and solving puzzles as well as inviting this reasonably appropriate story within the game. And because SuperHorrorBro seems to have an awkward obsession with the Muppets every time he plays a game involving puppets. Despite that, we're here for Crow Country. The game looks really interesting, especially considering it's about an abandoned theme park, or so I think. It's been like a while since I watched it. Which little noteworthy fact was uploaded right before SuperHorrorBro played Indigo Park, which is also about an abandoned theme park. Apparently the owner is missing, and so this woman that isn't really a detective sneaks into this park because she's some kind of amateur sleuth. Okay, I would justify the absence of this one, but that doesn't mean I don't want to see how it ends. The game might be old, the playthrough might have been almost 2 to 3 years ago, I can't actually remember, but hell, I want to know what happens. Now we'll never know. I put the main character on the same list as the Silent Hill F main character because they're both inspiring tomboys who had character depth beyond just being a woman who likes to do masculine things. We tomboys will never get the validation we desire from SuperHorrorBro because he won't play their games. I mean, to be fair, there might have been 1 or 2 that I missed. I probably did. Number 5, the classrooms. Okay, so it doesn't have a storyline, and there's no way SuperHorrorBro would ever play this one again, judging by how much he struggled with his first playthrough. But it's still a horror game, and it has some pretty cool entities, jump scares, and atmospheric rooms. Apparently, it's a lot like another game, which is called The Backrooms. First of all, my personal thoughts on The Backrooms is that it's really, boring, or I don't know. Nothing really happens, it's just a bunch of walking and noises, and sometimes new locations. I will, however, compliment the game considering the entire game is about getting lost in the backrooms. In other words, sort of isolation, abandonment, nobody's coming to save you, getting stuck in another dimension where no one and nothing is or exists. There's nothing, it's just you, your footsteps, and a bunch of furniture that you randomly discover depending on where you walk. I don't like the concept. I do like the concept. I'm confused on the concept, okay? And I do think if you're the one playing it, you can definitely feel the claustrophobia. And I do think the Backrooms in VR would be horrifying and an experience worth having. So the creation of it is still a masterpiece, and I'm really impressed with the concept. As for classrooms, you're not just wandering around empty rooms, you have to solve puzzles and run or hide from entities surrounding you. As I mostly do my research based on whether or not there's more to play or if the game received an update, SuperHorrorBro never really finished the game, and apparently it had an update recently. Really recently. I love this game because it makes my body feel awkward, like watching a horror movie where a person getting attacked by hordes of spiders and eggs bursting out from under their skin. Okay, this sentence came out wrong. It's like, I can't watch, and then you proceed to keep watching moment, especially if you've seen The Pool Room. It's horrifying. Okay, number 6, The Devil in Me. You know, I have to be honest, I didn't watch this one, but what I will tell you is this. My theory is that the game is inspired off of H.H. Holmes, and if you don't know who that is, the internet has a whole catalog you can look at. I think I'm actually just being metaphorical here, but he's a serial killer that had his mansion made out to be a death trap. He locked one woman who wanted to leave the hotel early in her room and poisoned her with gas. He also had this whole underground section where he threw the dead bodies. According to the documentary, he would also sell the carcasses in order to get rid of the bodies, or, make money, since I can imagine that would have been expensive to buy a dead body. Okay, but in all honesty, just because he's smart doesn't mean he's not pathetic. His existence means nothing, and I highly doubt anybody would have ever remembered him if that hotel sitting right on the corner of a street didn't look as creepy as it does. Unless you like documenting serial killers, then I bet you already know about him. The Devil in Me is part of some kind of franchise, so there are prequels that I personally believe SuperHorrorBro also didn't play. In all honesty, I'm not the biggest fan of the game mechanic and the storyline in general. Since if I wanted to watch something that feels like a crime documentary, I think I'd rather watch an actual crime documentary. Of course, I'm not saying that writing a story about a serial killer is boring, especially not one like this, because this one actually has substance due to the fact that it's inspired off of something so specific and complex. I would want to watch it, but not if SuperHorrorBro's not the one playing it. I need comfort, okay? I need a comforter. I need a father figure when I'm watching games like that. I don't like horror movies, and I don't like scary things unless there's somebody to reassure me throughout the journey. I would not survive World War III. I'd be one of the bodies in the pit that got infected with the Black Plague. I'm very pathetic. They'd probably set me on fire and forget about me. Okay, so for my final thoughts. Okay, so those are all 6 games, in general. SuperHorrorBro just absolutely ditched them. I would like to say that maybe one day he'd come back to them, but considering he's not been as interested in the gaming industry as he is in making his own stuff, I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon. Regardless, SuperHorrorBro, if you watch this, I'm so sorry.